It has finished. It has finished. It has finished. Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery is now concluded. We will not have any new Star Trek until January of 2019. That feels bad to say and to notice, probably. But, as I look back on this past season, I am more grateful that it occurred than not, because we got new Star Trek, 15 episodes, and we're here to discuss the finale today. I, Louis Brandmeier, am here. We also have Stephen Lewis Gurton, Richard Futrell, and Tyler Brandmeier. Say hi, guys. Not all.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
So, I liked this episode. I thought it was hopeful, optimistic, decent, fun, engaging. It hit the notes of an original series or a next-gen episode with thoughtful moral considerations and Starfleet values. It had a lot of very pretty visuals. And, of course, the Enterprise. I mean, we can talk about that later. I know that there's some people who are like, but it doesn't look like my grandpa's Enterprise.
But it had no purpose of the episode.
Yeah, it also had no purpose in the episode. It was entirely.
I disagree. I disagree that it had no purpose.
Well, one at a time. So
sure.
And of course, I'm going to be the first one at the time. The Enterprise was in the episode to serve as a nod to all of those people who have been like, oh, this is how does this fit into my universe, and they're Star Trek fans and they want Star Trek. This episode was really it was kind of a love letter to the fans. Like, hey, it might not have been well written in integration with the rest of the stories of the season. It might not have itself been well written. But what I got as a sense from the episode, from the fine details of it, from the way that everything worked out in the Klingon War and Burnham, was that, and I talked about this at length with Frank last night. It was a great conversation. How we are seeing the integration of Starfleet values and ethics into a certain character. Michael Burnham, that's her arc, is to fully embrace herself as those values. You see this in the Mirror Universe when Lorca's trying to get her to kill the rebels, but I'm Starfleet. And then here, I am Starfleet. And everybody else around her, we are Starfleet. What does that mean? And so during the war, especially with Lorca, especially with the influence of the Mirror Universe and the threat of annihilation, Klingons at our doorstep. I've never seen Klingons within shooting distance of Earth, right?
Within 100 astronomical units.
Well, no, they were within viewing distance. I mean, so
they showed us at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, and at the end when they kind of veer off.
And at the end, yes.
We've never been threatened in that way. And in the light of that deep threat, when Cornwell and other people make bad decisions, like let's kill them all through a genocidal mission, Burnham stands for, fully integrates, represents Starfleet values and morals, and is this shining star. And so at the end, the Enterprise showing up and everybody getting medals, that was like the writers saying, hey, we know how you remember things as Starfleet and as the Federation. We know that you want hope and optimism and truth and goodness. And we respect that, and we're here to give you that. Even if it's badly packaged, even if it's kind of mangled the way that it gets expressed, they know who their fan base is. They know who's watching the show, and they know why they're watching the show. And they may have experimented with, we're going to go dark and moody and gritty and gray for a while with different characters in order to kind of attract this new generation of people who like prestige television that's ethically, confused and fuzzy and not very helpful. But in the end, it's still Star Trek, and the Enterprise is the symbol of that. The Enterprise is a punctuation mark at the end of this sentence saying, hey, we love you guys. I don't know who's going to play Spock. I don't know, Zachary Quinto. Anyway, so that's my love song to this episode. You guys can go ahead now. Sorry, take the ball. Steve, you had something. I'll keep it kind of moderated because we've got so many today.
Of course. Well, for starters, just from what we mentioned a few moments ago about the Enterprise coming into the picture, I think it did serve a purpose that really did, at least send a big message to me that this is the Prime universe. This is absolutely not the Kelvin timeline, which is great. That's like a big relief to me, that it does connect and sync with all of the other Star Trek that we've seen. And honestly, I think they did a great job on the ship design. It looks, actually, I even had to rewind it. I played it a few times to make sure that the deflector dish was the original style from the original show, where the actual dish is connected.
Yeah, it's like a dish. It's like a real dish.
Yeah.
With a
exactly. It's not inset into the actual hull,
because
which is cool.
We appreciate that stuff. Yeah, I mean they did some stuff with the warp nacelles that made it look more like the TMP, like movie version of the Enterprise, which I was
that was what I thought. It looked like the movie Enterprise.
Okay. It's okay.
Yeah, the Enterprise A. I'm okay. I'm totally fine with it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought that part of it was great.
What people don't want is a shitty, ugly, half-assed 1960s miniature version that doesn't look good in comparison to every other ship they've done this season. And it's the same thing. You've got to argue around the look of everything in this season. So you want us to make Star Trek, but you don't want us to use modern CGI in order to make it look shitty and ancient like the 60s? I mean, not to say that it's really bad. It's just in the 60s. It's just different than what we've got now. So anyway,
I have no problem. Okay, go ahead. Oh, well, I was going to say I have no problem.
Yeah.
Oh, you were going to say. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say you finish because I want to move to Richard and Tyler as well.
Got you. All right. Well, I just want to I'll finish up on just about the Enterprise and just want to make one other comment. I was actually kind of concerned when they showed pictures of the USS Defiant earlier, that was lost in the Mirror Universe, and that was the stock photo of the original series Enterprise with the rounded, buzz collectors and all that stuff. So
there were slight alterations that made it a different ship if you look really closely. But go ahead.
Okay, I guess I didn't look at it that closely, but it looked a lot like the original Enterprise to me, and I was kind of concerned with the disconnect. But either way, and honestly, I kind of hope that we don't end up seeing the Enterprise crew. I hope they skip ahead, and basically it just becomes how you doing? And so it just becomes a nod, a reference, without getting sucked into that. So that
then we don't need somebody else to play Pike or Spock. Or
and the focus still stays on the Discovery.
Yeah,
the focus still stays on the Discovery and the new crew, and we get to explore them. We don't need to get lost in the others,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
exactly.
That's all I have to say.
Cool. Thanks, Steve. So, Richard, Tyler, who wants the book?
All right. I really hope that Discovery still stands on its own. I'm kind of excited thinking about who could be Spock, but that would be counterproductive to what the show
Tyler, you could be Spock.
Could be doing.
Spock. Actually, Tyler would make an excellent Spock.
I wonder if it's too late to apply. Tyler, we should make this happen. What a way to make money.
Yes.
You make
as long as I get paid.
$30,000 in a day or two of just filming one brief scene where you interact with Stamets. Wouldn't that be great? And then you just kick back and watch Star Trek for the rest of the year.
Oh yes, and then Spock can be in the bathroom whenever Sarek and Burnham are. Yeah.
Yeah. So
is it confirmed
any further?
It's going to be in the next season?
Who?
Is it confirmed that Spock's going to be in the future episodes?
No, no one's really said anything.
Well, on After Trek, they talk a little bit about, they imply that it's possible. They don't really talk about it though. They get asked point blank and they coyly don't engage with the question. It's funny.
The only value I would see in it, actually, the only character that I think that is totally relevant to Discovery would be Spock. If Spock actually, if they had an arc where Spock actually came over the Discovery and was around for a few episodes or something, because then you have the tension between he and Burnham and Sarek. That's actually interesting. That's something that you can explore. But the rest of them, well, whatever.
Richard, you sound like you might be a little grumpy about some things.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you pointed out about this episode. I think it's I don't think it was badly edited. I think it has some very stirring visuals.
Well, I didn't say broadly speaking that it was badly edited. I said the scene at the end where Burnham is kind of giving the speech. It was the cross-cutting. It was the cross-cutting between her lines of dialogue and then other stuff that was happening that was maybe a little confusing. I mean, it was well done, and I got it, especially after the second time. So, go ahead, though. Sorry.
Yeah, so my issue with this episode is whether we really earned that speech at the end. Because, I mean, the highest for this story is that Michael Burnham is faced with this horrible moral decision. She can save everyone she loves at the expense of killing the Klingons, or take the risk and do something right. And for that to be a strong story, it has to be a real risk with a real cost. And I don't think we really see that. What she does is she says, okay, instead of blowing the Klingon homeworld, we're going to just threaten to blow it up and use that to get political leverage, which is it's kind of incredible that she was the one to come up with this plan and no one else came up with this plan, because it's pretty simple. And also, she doesn't express any kind of fear that it might not work. It's just it's like she's faced with doing something evil or doing something good. There's not really any downside to doing the good thing, so of course she does the good thing. And so I didn't really feel moved at the end. I didn't feel like she had really, nor did I feel like this really came out of some transformation that she experienced over the course of the series. Could Michael Burnham from, episode 2 or 3 have done this? Probably.
Yeah,
so that's my main issue with the episode. It was just too easy. The moral choice, imagine if you're a general in a war and you're facing a real moral decision and it really is coming down to your ideals or everyone you love dying. And you want to turn to this episode for some wisdom. Are you going to get any wisdom out of it?
Only if you know how to change the ID code on a hydro bomb and the internal Klingon politics. No, I mean, it's not like a moral tale the way that Let That Be Your Last Battlefield was in the original series, where they got the guy with the black on the white side and the white on the other, or whatever. Or Justice from The Next Generation, or even Tuvix. Even Tuvix from Voyager touched on some ethical issues in a potential future circumstance that were legitimate. The cool thing about sci-fi is we explore ethical spaces that don't exist in the modern world, but could, pending the development of certain types of technology. And so, I agree. There wasn't much to sink our teeth into that was interesting. There wasn't much actual difficulty, and there wasn't much illustrated or explicit development of the Burnham character across the season. Now, I also want to seize on something else that you said that I think is a guiding principle for Clever Orbits. You said, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said the highest form of this story, right? Yeah, that's beautiful. Because that's what we're listening for. That's what we're creating. We learned this in undergrad and graduate school, that the philosophical literature that we approach, literature in general that we approach, is a construct. We are making those signifiers on that page into something coherent through our interpretation, through the architecture we come up with in our brains. It's the same way with fiction. When we watch something, we are constructing a narrative to make sense of the visual images. It's especially pronounced and obvious when you're watching something like Twin Peaks, or when you're watching something like Alejandro Jodorowsky, or any number of these avant-garde films where it's more disjointed and less coherent. So, I really want to seize on, acknowledge you for, appreciate you for, and take into the future this concept of the highest form of the story. Because, why am I going to watch something? Why would I watch it and then spend the rest of my life criticizing it? I would do that to the extent that it's interesting and fun and teaches me and shows me something that can be added or upgraded, or something missing, the presence of which will make a real difference in the show, because we're committed to the highest form of the story, which may be even higher than the story that we can construct with what's there in the actual visuals and the writing about it, etc. So anyway, thank you for that. Great idea, great concept, and then great comments too, because Burnham, you're right. We didn't really win it. I think we need it, and I'm glad that it's there, and I feel good about it having been put there. And I also feel like this season, now realize, season 1 of TNG was almost utter crap. Season 1 of DS9, pretty bad. Season 1 of Voyager, Season 1 of Enterprise was actually okay, paradoxically. And Season 1 of the original series, classic and good. But by and large, so 75 to 80% of first season Star Trek, orders of magnitude less good than what we got. So I think, they're going to do much better in the second season. They're going to realize that they need to be less plot-driven and less arc-driven and more character-driven, which is why I'm glad it's not an anthology. We get to have these characters that we developed to whatever extent we did. Burnham, Tyler, Tilly, Stamets, Saru. We get to see them evolve and change and grow and progress.
I can't agree with you more on that. I cannot agree with you more on that. It really needs to be about the characters, exploration of the characters, and putting them into crisis situations. It's a question of how they respond. To where to where the writing isn't just, well, this character is doing this because the plot needs it to happen. It needs to be organic.
Right. So and that's back to Richard, your point, is that kind of there were the maneuvers of chess pieces on the board rather than the organic expressions of individuals in order to get to something.
Like that.
Yeah.
I feel like the series really, if I were to pinpoint one thing that I found less than satisfactory, it would be I don't think there was a strong direction to it. I feel like it was trying to go in a lot of different directions. It felt like it's written by a big committee of writers that all have different ideas, and there's no one with a will or force powerful enough to say, no, we're not going to do that.
A vision.
This one good thing. Yeah, didn't appear to be a strong vision behind it. Maybe this is related to this drama about Brian Fuller originally being there and then leaving. I don't know. But that's just my general impression.
So there are commitments on the part of the writers. There are a lot of clear commitments. And if you watched After Trek, you saw Aaron Harbert, Gretchen Berg, and even Alex Kurtzman, who was involved in the Kelvin Timeline movies. Like, they all have, and then you look at the supporting cast too. Oh, and then Shaniqua Martin Green and the guy who plays Stamets. Like, they were all on, and you got a real sense for the reverence, love, affection, attention, and depth of profound, like, trying to take care of something that's very valuable that they have at the same time as, like, making something new. And, like, so I think their commitments are really what gets shown forth here rather than a vision. Like, and I'm not saying that you can have just commitments in lieu of a vision. Like, you do need a vision. Voyager, the ship's lost in the Delta Quadrant, we're trying to get home, which is honestly, when it comes down to it, without making it kind of more arc-based, kind of weak vision. But with this, there's some noise, by the way, there's a little bit in the background. With this, they had a kind of a vision, but it wasn't well developed enough. And we know from what they talk about behind the scenes that they're going to be shifting things so that there's more of the episodic kind of Star Trek feel for season 2. So this is like where they work the kinks out. This is where they like have their hiccups and have their drop balls, and they also really, I think, needed something at the end. They needed to like reaffirm Starfleet's values, because honestly, when I was watching this with Artemis, we have been our chains have been so jerked around by this like ethically ambiguous aspect to the show that you get with Lorca, that you even get with Cornwell, that you almost sometimes get with Burnham. Saru even expresses himself a couple times way back with the tardigrade. He was like, we'll just throw it in there and make it work. Like, I was so jerked around by that as a kind of component of the expression of this show that when we found out about the bomb, like me and Artemis, we were just like, that they should just do that. I mean, like, they should just kill all the Klingons. It just seemed like it makes sense. It's probably not the best, but like it'll be really helpful. It'll be just really helpful. And I found myself almost disappointed when Starfleet didn't commit genocide, which is really confusing.
Can I make a comment to follow up? I agree with you because it seemed like there were so many reversals, and it's like a lesson that we learned earlier in the season. Like the Pavins episode, and like I think it's kind of ironic, right, that like in this thought experiment, right, where Burnham is faced with this choice to like either destroy the Klingon world and save Earth, or take the risk of not having peace, and then Earth would be destroyed. And then would she really be getting a medal then? You know, at that point, like Starfleet would go entirely in the other direction. It would be just like the Terrans. Ultimately, it was that like ruthless attitude of the Emperor that did save the day. She brought the bomb. She did actually like accomplish the mission, because like they couldn't even have blackmailed the Klingons in that way if she hadn't been there to concoct the idea to make a planet killer. So I feel like that's kind of confusing, because what else were they going to do if she hadn't been there?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they would have mapped the surface. That was their plan. Like, we're going to map the surface and find the worst place.
Yeah, but you don't have time to map the surface. Literally, the Klingons are looking at Earth.
It's a wonder that they didn't attack Earth.
Let's do some cartography.
It's a wonder that they are so close to Earth and they didn't shoot. Like the Klingons, they're right there. I mean, why not?
Yeah, so I'm wondering, like, L'Rell. So why doesn't L'Rell just take the controller for the bomb and say, you know, all right, Klingon High Council, I just saved the entire planet, so now you need to follow my lead and let's snuff out Earth. I don't.
Well, wait, wasn't that what she
do that?
Well, isn't that what she did? It seemed like she.
That is what she did.
No, she said, let's make peace.
No, she said yes, and she absolutely didn't have to. In fact, she could have, being in possession of the bomb, she could have come to the council and said, you guys should make me the leader because I have a planet killer that can destroy Earth.
That's what she did.
Actually, no. That's not true, because they needed the volcanic.
She didn't do it with Earth. Yeah, you need that infrastructure to the planet for the device to work. Yeah, I think
that's right.
I mean, honestly, when you look at L'Rell, it's an instance of, you could accuse it, the show again of like needing to position pieces on a board and to have it end up somewhere, and it wasn't really well developed. But like, I think ultimately the emblematic victory of having a woman lead the Klingon Empire, however she got there, is pretty cool. I think we've never had that in Star Trek history. We'll never see that again. From what I understand, it's always like Gowron or the people fighting when Archer was there 100 years ago. I mean, like. So that was kind of a victory. That was good. I liked that. You know, and
it was Lursa and B'Etor.
They were just like peons. They
weren't official. They were powers behind the throne.
They were always trying to get power. They never actually had it. Like, for as long as we know them, they're like trying to maneuver political intrigue and like trilithium weapon and like. Finally, I think did they get killed in DS9? I really want to believe they did. Oh no, they got killed in Generations. Yeah.
Yeah, they blew up on the ship. Which, by the way, is the exact same footage from Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country when that sort of thing blows up.
Everybody knows this, Steve. It's they just got lazy. That's on the Red Letter Media Guide stuff. So anyway, there's one thing that I want to say about the Klingon homeworld and Klingon culture. They made a stab at showing us some Klingon culture. It didn't really go very well. It was mostly the Orions. Like, we saw that one game that the Klingons play that is awesome, which is called, what is it? It's called Obliterate Them. What a great name for a Klingon game. It totally seems like something Worf would be playing as a kid growing up, like Obliterate Them. But so that that was good, and for anybody who didn't notice, it seemed like in a frying pan they had the SETI Alpha eels from the Wrath of Khan. Yep. Those things that Khan.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, they were being fried up, which is weird because that means somebody went to that planet, harvested those things. That was the only reason they went to that planet, and then they came all the way back to Kronos just to fry. I don't know, whatever. But so anyway. About the planet Kronos, Frank pointed out last night, this is really, really key, that according to those beautiful, by the way, holographic maps that we get to see over and over in this episode and one before, there seems to be almost no water on the surface of Kronos. There's like a lake or something, there's a river, but it's very sparse in terms of water flow. And so his theory was it's like Africa, where you don't have a lot of natural resources, or they've been expended and used up. And what happens is on the planet itself, just like with the tribal violence you get in Africa, there's a lot of infighting and a lot of harshness of character that develops just to survive the brutal environmental conditions. And so you take that mindset, you say, oh, the Klingons are like that because, these 24 houses, these houses probably are basically like tribes. And they've been fighting amongst themselves to gain power over the Empire, and also just like initially, just to survive on this planet probably. And that kind of harsh mindset, that kind of willingness to do battle and to be a warrior, like when you take that out into the interstellar stage, of course it's going to result in this kind of like conflictual orientation. Of course,
that's an interesting thought. It's similar to like Frank Herbert's concept of the Fremen in Dune.
Elaborate, please.
Well, because the Fremen are and so in Dune, the Fremen live on Arrakis, the desert planet, which is Dune, and there's very, very little water. And so they've learned to basically develop this like intense discipline. First off, a water discipline, but secondly, when someone dies, they like reclaim their water. They literally like cut their body open and drain it all its moisture, to survive. But they're all badass warriors because of this of the intense conditions surrounding them. Similarly, in Dune, the Emperor's forces, the Sardaukar, are on Seleucus Secundus, which is a similar harsh environment that makes them tougher, warriors. So anyway, but it's a very interesting idea. I like that idea that's kind of where a lot of the Klingon attitude, historically speaking, derived. It's not just this blanket quality that their race has, it has to have historical, socio-political roots.
You know what the problem with this whole idea is, Steve?
What's that?
We are drawing it out by implication from very little evidence on screen.
That's true. That's true. It's just fun to think about.
Yeah, no, it's great. I would definitely include it as part of my reading of the highest form of the story, as what's going on in the background, and it is definitely implied by that map that as a possibility. If you know history, if you know anthropology, you can look at that and be like, that's probably what's going on. However, I wish, if that is what the writers intended, which I think it is, they would have gone into it more. I wish they would have gone more into actual Klingon culture. It's cool to know that Klingons have tattoos like we do that are even cooler than ours, and it's cool to know that they play games and drink and have sex and
I agree. I was very, cool very stuff. Happy for all of that. In fact, the market scene and the bazaar and all that stuff, that was my favorite part of the episode. I thought that was awesome and very well done.
Okay.
In fact, I want to comment on Tilly. Tilly actually was also one of my favorite things about this episode. I thought her writing was awesome.
The more I think about Tilly, the more she and you remind me of each other.
Oh, really?
in only the best ways.
Well, the scene where she has to get high, she's forced to inhale this stuff. Who, by the way, the guy that is giving her that is the same man that plays Quark. Did you notice that?
No, that is not Quark.
That's Quark.
That is not
Baylock.
Quark. That is not Quark. That is Baylock. Yes, that is the guy from the Corbomite Maneuver in the original series. Quark is Armin Shimmerman. Very different people.
Oh, but I am wrong. I stand corrected.
You had a bell going off in your head saying this guy's familiar, and that much was true. Okay, you just misidentified him from there. You were like, no. But there was a lot of great stuff about Tilly. I loved when she excitedly meets Giorgio and then realizes, this is not the one that I was excited to meet. And then Giorgio's like, remember that time we subjugated the Bedizen homeworld? Okay. And Mintaka 3, that was such a cool little throwaway reference, but Mintaka 3 is from Who Watches the Watchers. Well, the next-gen episode where Picard goes down, there's this duck blind, and they see Picard, and they start calling him the Picard because they think he's a god because he heals somebody. And then Picard has to get wounded in front of them to show them that he's not a god and tries to convince them, hey, this is just science. And, like, there's a whole culture of proto-Vulcans on that planet that apparently just got eliminated in the Mirror Universe. I just love that, like, okay, there's this richness and depth and this reference we get to make to how everything played out so differently in the Mirror Universe. And then alternatively, when I thought it was cute and funny when they said the Orions. Yes, the Orions here are the Orions in my universe are like these drug peddling thieves and racketeers or whatever. And I like how Burnham and them are like, yeah, pretty much the same here. Like, because you expect a difference between the Mirror and the Prime universe, but like, nope, they're just the same. It's nice that can only really happen once. Much like the two pee holes can only happen once. Klingons apparently have two penises.
We're learning new lore all the time.
I mean, like, come on, guys. You got so much better things that you can do with your TV MA rating than show us one guy peeing with two penises. I mean, like, you could show us Klingon nipples. Oh, wait, that's just as bad. That's just as gratuitous, useless, unnecessary, and dumb. I mean, anyway.
Thanks a lot.
Anyway, they also seem to have forgotten about the spore drive really messing up Stamets' brain. Like,
yeah,
that was a thing
he just never
for a
got
while.
Any treatment for that.
He never. Well, he did kind of get the treatments from Tilly.
Fine.
He got the treatments from Tilly, but like those were for the worsening of his condition that happened after the final jump. Those weren't for the structural brain changes that were happening because of all the other jumps. Like previous to that final mission, where they jumped around the Klingon ship and all of that, like previous to that, he was having some issues. And apparently, I mean, hopefully they carry that forward into the second season. Hopefully it isn't just Culber being dead and like he has some like flashbacks or something, and he has to deal with being part of the
can be sacrificed for the sake of Earth. Come on.
Well,
I'm kidding.
You know, it's funny to imagine that all Klingons grow up, and as they grow up, like one of their fundamental thought processes is obliterate them. That explains a lot about Klingon culture and thought process.
You think humans don't have that thought?
I think humans do. Remember the time I beat up those guys in that bar because they were fucking with me and the chick? Yeah. I totally discovered that I had that impulse to like not obliterate them. I just like there is a violent piece in human nature that needs to be acknowledged.
And that impulse, which you might think should be suppressed because it's violent, turns out to actually be useful in many situations, and that's why we need to integrate the shadow and not fight it.
Right. Yeah, which she says, right? She said in the last episode, Tilly, talking about the mirror universe parts of yourself. Yeah. This show stumbles into some really useful philosophical observations and notes, even if it's not consistent in producing quality intellectual stimulation content like that. I still like, Mud killing Lorca over and over. That was great. And totally different.
Definitely one of the strongest episodes of the entire season, for sure.
Yeah, I think near the end of this podcast, we should do kind of a wrap-up thing on the season, too. Like, I think the strongest were probably Magic to Make the Sanest Men Go Mad, the first half of the season finale, and then, honestly, I'd say this episode was pretty strong. So, but anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Tilly High was great. I thought it was funny that happened to her. I thought it was kind of funny that, or maybe it was lazy, I don't know, on the part of the production and the makeup designers or whatever that, I mean, I get what they were trying to do, but it also just came off as kind of dumb that instead of having the really deep, dark, heavy green color that you see in the Orions in Enterprise or I think you kind of see it in the animated series. Like here, they're kind of like white people with lightly sprayed on green. Like, it's just kind of like, I got that they wanted us to have the experience of diversity in the Orions. Like, they have different skin colors, just like the Klingons have different skin colors. Some of them are really white, some of them are darker. Like Bach was really white. But, you know,
I think it was just the lighting.
Maybe.
They were in these rooms that had these weird blue and green lights, and as a result, their skin seems distinctively green.
Huh. Yeah, and I'm not accusing them of being bad. I just thought there could have been something else there. Maybe different shades of green. Maybe they could have had 50 shades of green.
Can I make a
nitpicky
point?
As much as it got.
I liked when Tilly was eating that food, and it turned out it was a space.
The Gormagander.
That was great. That was a nice
so carefully
callback.
to save before, and then now she's eating it. That was a good moment.
Yep. Totally.
That was a great moment. So
totally.
At the end, you know, so we have the award ceremony, right? And so medals all around for at least the bridge crew and whatnot, you know. Very reminiscent of like the end of The Undiscovered Country, and you know, we've seen this kind of thing before. So I guess my nitpicky question is like, well, if they're all being awarded and like, you know, Burnham gets her badge back, and so she's a commander now, you know, so she's been promoted. It kind of makes perfect sense to me in terms of like Starfleet rules and logic that Saru should get promoted to captain and should be the captain. So I kind of don't understand why, like, oh, well, we've got
to
this,
get another
like,
captain.
Yeah, we've got this legendary crew, you know, that's like similar to like the Enterprise crew that's famous, you know, throughout Starfleet. And instead of Saru getting a promotion, he kind of gets the shaft, like they give him a medal, you know.
Well, he also doesn't seem to want the captaincy, really. He points out acting captain when somebody calls him Captain Saru, and it seems like he's almost there, and he definitely can occupy the position, but he's kind of jittery around it. Like, he's kind of like, maybe, you know how Riker could have been a captain for many years, but decided he needed to learn more from Picard. Like, maybe Saru's somewhere.
I think it's different from Riker, though, because I see Saru's character as someone that's very dedicated to like the mission and the vision of Starfleet, and he wants to be a part of it in any capacity that Starfleet deems necessary. He's a rule follower. He really believes in like the rules and the structure and the order and everything like that. And if Starfleet, you know, promoted him to captain and asked him to command, he would just do it, you know, because he's very trusting in the chain of command and very trusting in the Admiralty, and willing to kind of like go along with, you know, whatever the plan is, even if he's like personally questioning it. And he brings up his objections and concerns, yes. But to him, like, you know, Starfleet is bigger than any one individual. So to me, it just seems like it would ultimately be Starfleet's decision on who should actually captain the Discovery. I'm very glad that they didn't do something stupid like, oh, well, Michael Burnham, you're now the captain. That would have been terrible.
Yeah, that would have been too much.
I kind of hope that the next season is less Burnham-centric. I really do. I see what they were trying to do, and I think it's a fresh idea to like make like our protagonist and our like center of attention, you know, someone that is not the captain, and is, you know, lower on the totem pole. But I kind of feel like I would like it. The other characters are very interesting, and I want to see them explored more, and it not just be kind of about Burnham the whole time. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, more of an ensemble cast thing. Yeah.
Like what's the name of the, like, you know, semi-android character?
Oh, yeah.
The enhanced alien.
Arium.
I don't know anything about him.
She's actually human. It's a her, and she's really gorgeous without all that makeup and alien stuff on, and she's also an augmented human within the context of the show. In fact, on After Trek, you get some messages from each of the supporting cast, and I love that the supporting cast is consistent, number one. Number two, we know most of their names. Detmer, communications officer guy. I don't know his name, actually. I don't remember his name. I saw it yesterday twice because I watched the same After Trek and I just don't remember. And it was really funny because, like, on After Trek, that actor is the one who is the most jazzed about being on Star Trek. He's like, you remember that guy from Galaxy Quest? Guy? He's like, I'm just jazzed to be on the show, man. Like, this guy, he's clearly that excited about being on Star Trek Discovery. And so, like, I agree. I want more from those characters. I want more interactions and, like, maybe a whole episode focused on communications officer guy. Like, what's his story?
Exactly, because that's what Trek has always done, right? That's how you get to know an individual character, is that they give them an episode. There's an episode where basically that spotlight shifts between the characters, you know, or an episode is about two characters, you know, and there's usually, like, you know, a subplot, right? You know, the B story that, you know, is in the background. But yeah, I really hope they do that with the second season. And I understand why they didn't. They had a lot to, like, cram in there this season. But I hope as it expands, you know, they're able to, like, give, you know, I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess Stamets kind of had like his stories. I don't know. There were moments that, you know, but yeah. Anyway, I would like to see more of the other characters.
I agree. The writers also say that they're going to have more of a focus on science and spirituality next season, which should be interesting to see how those all relate. Some other stuff that I liked, the Clint Howard when he wakes up Tilly, and then he says, "You were asleep. I'm Orion." It was just great. It was like that. That actually was kind of one of the best expressions for, like, Orion Pirates and the Orion Syndicate, like that little cute little moment. Like him, number one, because he played very well, and then that line. And then the idea of a phreatic eruption that Burnham talks about, that's a real thing, and it's really interesting. I like how Burnham holds her communicator. So you know how Kirk, like, he holds it in the palm of his hand and he flips the thing open? Like, she holds it kind of to the side. And I don't know, it's a really subtle thing, but it's like the kind of thing that distinguishes a character. Like she holds it, I don't know, like almost like a walkie-talkie, very close to her mouth and all of this. So I appreciated that. I like the Klingon visual dialects in the Bazaar. I love the little nuzzle that Ash gives to Burnham in their final scene together. Like he kisses her, and then right when he's walking past her, he, like, puts his forehead on her face because he just wants to express that love and that affection. And I love that they got a proper goodbye. Like, last episode was just crap, right? Where she's like, "I'm sorry, man, you got to work on yourself. You got to deal with this shit on your own, and I can't be there. I can't, you know, fix it for you." And After Trek, Shaniqua talks about how, like, it's because she loves him so much still that she knows that he has to be responsible for healing himself and doing that work, and that's why she leaves him there. It's the hardest thing to let you go, she says. So it was good that they also expressed the piece about, like, them still caring about each other here. I liked it too. I liked that too. Yeah, it was sweet. There were the scenes with.
I'm glad that they got rid of that. I'm glad that Ash is leaving the show because I feel like he has a complete arc now. I feel closure about him.
Great point. He actually has integrated Vok into his character. He owns speaking Klingon, his knowledge of the Klingon culture, his experiences as Vok. Like, he's there to help L'Rell because that's what he's best suited for, and it's like in DS9, you know, you spend like the first 4 seasons of Sisko fighting this aspect of his character being the emissary. And then finally, when in season 4, a car, or whatever his name is, the poet, comes through the wormhole and pretends to be the emissary, and Sisko's like, "Wait, this is terrible. You guys, this guy is not the emissary," and the prophets are like, "Oh, yeah, we sent you this guy so that you'd realize that you really are the emissary, and you need to own this part of your identity." Like, there's a character arc there. And with Vok, there really was. In the past couple episodes, like, it was kind of fuzzy and weird for a second, but he definitely has had some development. And